Soul module is about design pedagogy. It's not only meant for architecture, it can also work for any other studio-based learning. Doesn't matter if you're architecture or industrial design, or it can be graphic design. So any other design fieldwork can also employ or use this methodology. I would like to share the next presentation with my video on the soul to give impression on just look at the video and to get some information about the methodology before I start with my presentation. All right, so I will start with my presentation. Those video is just to give some early information. What's this old soul methodology is all about? It's a teaser for this presentation. Okay. This methodology is actually have been started from 2017, which I experimented in my own studio towards undergraduate final year. Because the way that we teach is not is always the same as what we've been taught. So this is like innovation to come up with a new idea of how to teach, especially in the studio education. So what is actually studio education? It's actually a process of facilitating design learning. So as I mentioned, doesn't matter whether we are from architecture background or graphic background or industrial design background. So as long as you facilitate design learning and the teachers and students weave together into a coherent conceptual framework, that knowledge, skills, values, beliefs, and habits that reflects the objective of the school. So inside pseudo education, the psychomotor is the most important part, where the student needs to not only um, employ or not only demonstrate what they've been taught in the studio, but they need to innovate. They need to come up with new design ideas in order to solve issues and also problems in the society. All right. So in this student education, we shared set of understandings, meanings, and assumptions constructed by both educators, practitioners, and students. And therefore, a studio education is a learning environment that fosters a set of conditions that are similar to those in which professional architect might work. So in this studio education, especially in architecture studio education, we somehow mimic the real practice outside there. So whatever happened in the company, it's also happened in the studio. So that's why architecture studio is like we become a role play where the tutors, especially the lecturers, become like a boss, okay, become like the superior in the office, and the student become like workers. Okay, it's like a architecture assistant where they work towards deadline. They were given a certain deadline, and they need to work according to the deadline. They need to produce. We give them problems in the society. For example, um, the society needs a clinic. The society needs an institution. The society needs something, a new way of habitable, for example, a housing that can solve their issues, their daily activities and daily issues. So the student need to come up with these problems, and also how to find a best solution to solve this problem. All right. So what are the problems in current studio education? Okay, in the background, the studio represents significant departures from other pedagogic approaches. So we can say in the studio is quite different from other type of pedagogy. Studio is a casual place where meeting times are specified, but students gather and disperse haphazardly. This is according to Kosidovsky 1996. Okay, if for those who not in this background, a studio is normally open 24 hours. Okay, like in our case in UPM, we allow the student to use the studio 24 hours when approaching towards deadline. So of course we cannot open it every day because subject to misuse. We don't want to allow some misuse by the students. So, but traditionally, studio is something which is open 24 hours because normally design student, they get this idea maybe at 3 o'clock in the morning, or maybe 12 o'clock in the midnight. So we always allow the students to come back to the studio and then do their work in the studio. So but the problem is that in term of pedagogy, the way we teach as a tutor, as the educator, remains in the Latin of I teach as I was taught attitude. And ironically, most design educators and learners place high value on innovation, creativity, and critical thinking, but ignoring the innovative teaching methodologies. Although for these past years, there are a lot of design output came up from the studio, but then the innovation in terms of teaching methodologies are still lacking. So therefore, this sole module, as I mentioned, although studio remains a productive and place to gather ideas and work, it remains unknown how it should respond to the vast of technology nowadays. So we have a lot of technologies that we use in normal pedagogy, but sadly it's not reflected in the design pedagogy. I can say that in the design pedagogy, there's not much innovation happen. So therefore, this suggests the key to innovation in studio teaching and learning. And we think how to combine content and teaching innovation into an effective pedagogic framework. All right. So I combine both pedagogy and pedagogy to become what I term as pseudogogy. So these are some of the elements inside the pedagogy. It's a problem-based learning itself, as I mentioned just now. We started our design course normally with a problem. All right, and then we need to echoing two further points. We need to merge between the problem and the solution, and then it's a critical reflection. It's a small group work, and then experiential learning. So as this the student move in terms of maturity from their first year to second year, third year, and then towards this master level, they become more matured in understanding or finding solution to their problems. And of course the problems different in terms of the sizes, the sizes of the project. Maybe for example in the first year they started with a very small project. It's a habitable project. It's only to accommodate one person, but along the process they started to, you know, the intricacity of the project become the complexity become much more bigger. For example, in the master, they start solving community problems. So this soul module is actually inspired by self-determination theory by Daisy and Ryan. It's quite a long or old literature from 2008. And then we have a real model by Grebinger and Dunlap. This is also from 1995. And then we have all seat framework by Lee and Hanafin, and self-regulated most recent by Powers 2017. So all of this module are influenced by all of these scholars, where we emphasize on the aspect of engagement, support, scaffolding, and guidance, and coordinate them to create a more holistic studio experience. So it is important to have all this theory to support a soul module or methodology. So the objective of soul module or soul methodology, first is to innovate teaching and learning methodology in the studio. And secondly is to initiate self-regulated learners in the learning process. Thirdly, to promote critical thinking and thoughtful discussions. Fourth, to increase architecture graduate skills in collaboration and online competency towards IR 4.0. And finally, to reduce teaching burden in the studio and to promote independent and leadership skills. I will explain how this methodology will help to burden the studio and to promote independent and leadership skills.
Okay, Dr. Zairul, means that the students no need to go to the real studio. What do you say before is it's open for 24 hours. So now they can start to work through virtual studio. That's right.
Yes, correct. Because previously, they need to come to the studio and then they need to work in the studio because the discussion is physical discussion.
Yeah, this is a physical. Now is they can do the similar the similar outcomes. They do through the virtual studio, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
With all this technology that available in the market and the tools that provide in the market, this methodology will help to mimic, I would say, mimic the
Okay.
physical studio inside
Mm-hmm.
the online version. Yeah.
Okay, it's good. Okay.
All right. So the original and evolving goals of Soul module is we have these three components: the lecturing, sharing, and assessment. So these three elements is actually the thing that bind the Soul methodology. All right. The method has engaged both peer feedback and peer assessment at the same time, supported by online tools. And this strategy assists the cognitive and affective skills of the students for lifelong learning, knowledge, and thus align to the expected outcome of the subject. All right. As I mentioned, the conceptual framework of this studio is based on the three elements, which is the info lecture, the tutorial and sharing, and also assessment. So I will explain further how these three elements will be transferred into online version, which help will which will not reduce whatever physical needs that we already employed all this while.
Okay.
Right. Towards the new theory of pedagogy, by definition, pedagogy is a combination of best practices in peer-to-peer learning that utilize technology and online learning. And the term pedagogy should reflect the new ways of designing the pseudo pedagogy. And at the same time, the academics and practitioners need to improve and equip themselves with the latest technology and adapt knowledge. So we already got grant to actually run this soul methodology, and we found out that most of the practitioners and also tutors in the studio, they are still, I would say, reluctant or very I think shy away from using technology to help in terms of pseudo teaching. So
Because
therefore,
maybe they were used to the traditional methods of teachings, right?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. Yeah, in order for us to change the way they've been
Mm.
teaching all this while is yeah, it takes time actually to
Yeah.
change behavior. But this during this COVID pandemic, there's no choice. Okay,
Okay. That's right.
no choice for them to say, okay, I don't want to use technology. I would rather to use pen and chalk and rather to use physical meet with the student. But during this COVID, if this pandemic prolong, we don't know
Mm-hmm.
how long it will lasted. Maybe they're gonna be like uh, fourth or fifth, or maybe what. So from what I heard,
Mm-hmm.
there will be no gathering from within the 6 to 1 year to
Mm-hmm.
avoid this virus to
Okay.
get worse. So there's no option. Therefore,
Okay.
by hook or by crook, you need to change the way you teach.
Okay.
So we try to combine between pedagogy and cybergogy. So as I mentioned, component A is about lecture. So previously we teach face to face, but now we have Zoom, we have a YouTube, we have Padlet, we have Kahoot, we have so many other forms of presentation method. So the choice is yours. Okay, so the lecturers, they can choose between all of these available software, and if they are afraid with the security in Zoom, they can choose Webex and other methods of presenting their work. So it can be asynchronous or it can be synchronous. It's whether you want to be in real time teaching the student, or you can record it, put in YouTube, and the student can watch your lecture later. So I think this also happen in other pedagogy. It
Mm-hmm.
happens in the academics routes, not only in architecture.
Okay.
So in this way, you can allow the students to, if the student having difficulty to access to the internet, you can have it not in real time. You can just post it in somewhere, and then the student can
Mm-hmm.
just watch it when they're available and when they have the data.
Okay.
All right. The next, okay, this is how it being done. As I mentioned, I'm using Zoom. So I prefer to use Zoom because this annotation feature where you can you can put comments, you can sketch on student work, and
Mm-hmm.
then you can also ask the student to to query on a student design so that they can improve. And then this one, they can become you can snapshot the thing, and then they can keep the comments so that they can improve their scheme.
So
Okay,
there is a lot of tools that we can apply through the online lecture. So for example, the using Zoom and so on, right?
exactly.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes. So this feature is especially during the traditional method, we always sketch on student work. So then there's a comment from the lecturer saying that, oh, during the if you're using online, we cannot sketch on the student work. So there's no complaint anymore, because you can sketch on the screen using this Zoom. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. There's also another maybe a complaint and grouses from the lecturer saying that, oh, we cannot see student progress, okay, because in order for student to come up with a final project, okay, final output, they need to see to show their progress. So the Padlet is one of the best way to show their progress, where the student they can upload in the Padlet, and then there's a comment section where we can always comment their works. This Padlet is a good interface or tools that the student no need to be in real time. Okay,
Okay.
so the student can just upload their works, for example, like a normal studio. If they have if they have ideas in the 12 midnight or maybe 3 o'clock in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
so they
Mm-hmm.
just upload their progress. Okay, for example, okay, I found this very interesting articles about something, or they found this new maybe design approach by someone else that they found from internet, so they can just upload the link, or they can upload the whole articles. And then there's a lot of discussion. Remember that we have a sharing tools of sorry sharing elements in the soul. So this is where the student can share also their articles, so that the rest of the class or the rest of the group can also share their materials.
Okay. Is
Okay.
it possible, Dr. Zairul, for example, when we discuss through online, for example, Zooms or WebEx and so on, so the students share what they did in the Padlet through the Zoom's application.
Yes. Even this Zoom can connect to Google Classroom, and
Mm-hmm.
also you can create a PDF, and also it
Mm-hmm.
can be uploaded in the Zoom. Of course,
Okay.
open the Padlet inside the Zoom, of course.
Okay, that's right.
Screen. So it's very important for us to monitor student progress. So that's why I'm using Padlet to actually monitor student progress, and also from time to time to see whether they are really working in on their scheme, or because we in architecture also there's almost common to have plagiarism in terms of design, because the student can just go to the internet and then copy the design from
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
anywhere, and then show that this is their design. But by showing their progress, we know that okay, the design was made from scratch. So it's
Mm-hmm.
very important to show in the Padlet the progress. Okay, and then the next component is sharing. Okay, previously, as I mentioned, the student they bring their materials to studio, and then for example, in a group we have like 12 student. So if, for example, one student bring three materials, you imagine during the sharing session we have 36 already materials that can be shared among the groups.
Mm-hmm.
Because previously in the traditional approach, the student come to the lecturer one to one. So it's almost common that when the students share, the rest of the class didn't
Mm-hmm.
aware what the students is doing, and because it's only one to one with the tutors. So in the soul methodology before COVID, when the students share their materials, the materials can be expanded. You see, from only maybe one person only have three materials only, or only one materials, but in a group they have 12 materials already. Then the discussion become much more lively and become very rich. So during this COVID, is nothing much changes. We just put all the materials inside the Padlet just now, and the student can just see what their friends already found in the internet, and then a lot of discussion can going on in the Padlet especially, and then I can also insert some of the comments and then give if the student done a good work, so we need to give some praise to whatever they have done. So this is also important to have this sharing session. Okay, this is what been done traditionally, but during this COVID, it's been done digitally in the Padlet. Okay, all right. The third part, which is the intricate part, is the assessment. Okay, a lot of tutors, a lot of facilitators complain that, oh, it's very difficult to assess the student work because previously we need to lay down the drawings, which is a very big drawings. We paste it on board, and then the panel will come and then critique the student works. So how we do it in during online and also using this soul methodology. So using this soul methodology, we ask the student to assess among themselves first. Okay, we call it peer assessment. So when the student give we call it a chance to actually um, assess among the peers, they now know what they're being assessed. Okay, previously they don't know what they're being assessed. Normally during the session they're being attacked or they're being criticized by the panels, and then at the end of the day they become frustrated because they spend a lot of time to produce the scheme, but then only to get a lot of comment and critics. But then if we have this one line, the first line where the student assess among themselves first, so the student become more critical. All right, we give them more powers to actually choose or to actually take control of their own learning. So this is actually what we call as student-centered learning, implemented in the studio.
Yes,
So
right.
yeah. And then during this COVID, what I introduced is that we have this assessment in the Google Classroom where we set the deadline and then we give the marks. And then, for example, you look here, the
Okay.
student upload their work. Okay, they upload their work. Okay, for example, sorry, they upload their works in Google Classroom, and then they put their name and the mention number, and then this is where we put the marks. Okay,
Mhm.
so the student will get their marks and then also the comment. All right. So, and then this Google Classroom can also be accessed by different panels, because in design critics we need to allow different panels because different panel will have a different comments.
Yeah.
So it's like a peer review also.
Okay.
So when we have this maybe two or three panels, they will have a different reviews, and then inside here the panels will insert their reviews so that the student can improve their works. Because in architecture, we in the design studio especially, we use formative assessment rather
Okay.
than summative assessment.
Okay. So
Okay.
the students get the comments. One is from peer reviews, their friends comments of their works, and one more thing is from the panel of experts.
Yep.
Is it right? Okay.
We have two review we call it stages, where
Mm-hmm.
we have the peers review, and then the
Okay.
second one is the panels or the expert,
Mm.
where we call architects or professor, and
Okay.
then they will review the student works. So the student will have got a chance to actually improve their works
Okay.
before the we call it a portfolio day. All
Okay.
right. So we have portfolio day towards the end, where the design will be really cooked, I would say, and then really undergone this process to make it, less questionable, but towards the end of the day. And
Yeah.
then, so it's very critical, and it's
Mm.
also it shows the design really matured during the.
Okay. So finally, the students can produce the best design that they can do, right? Through
Exactly.
through through the comments, right? Okay.
Okay. During this session, okay, in the Padlet also, okay, previously during before the COVID, As I mentioned, before soul methodology, the session is one-to-one, where the tutors spend long time. I think for one student, it can take up to 2 hours session. It's like a one-to-one session. But with this new methodology of soul, we try to have this sharing session where maybe in a group of six, okay, the student share among themselves, and then the tutor
Mm-hmm.
become facilitator. In
Okay.
this way, we save a lot of time rather
Good.
than
Mm.
one-to-one discussion.
So
So
they can learn, the other students can learn from the comment of their friends, or through the comment from the facilitator to the certain project, right? Okay.
exactly. So then the facilitator need not to, repeat the same thing again and again, because the student already aware
Mm-hmm.
maybe the mistake from the first
Okay.
student, so they don't replicate the same mistake.
Okay, sir.
What I notice is that the facilitator need to have this skill also to actually facilitate it, the group.
Mm-hmm.
Try to not to intervene too much during discussion,
Mm-hmm.
and just in case if the student get lost, then the facilitator will, guide the student back to the original objective of the study.
Okay.
Yeah. So during this COVID session, the facilitator, of course, there's no problem. You can also use Padlet and let the student, because architecture is more explorative type of education, and it's a constructive. So we allow the student to just throw the idea, and then in the Padlet you can just comment, and then okay, maybe you need to come back to the objective, and then you know uh, discuss more on certain topic rather than go beyond the topic. So in during this COVID, we use Padlet to replace this normal sharing.
Okay. So,
Okay, and then we always share rubric to the students, as I mentioned, the peer assessment. So the rubric were given to the students so that they aware of what they're being assessed, and then they also, I noticed that they compete among each other to actually fulfill all of this, so that they will not to get a high marks towards the end of the
so they focus, they focus through the course learning outcomes, and then what types of assessments that they have to achieve, right?
exactly, yes.
Okay.
So as I mentioned about the formative assessment, um, although there are stages that they need to fulfill, but along the way, if the students, sometimes there are students who that's a late bloomer, and uh, they don't really come up with a good design at the early stage, but towards the end they come up with a good design. So
Okay.
therefore we allow for them to grow. That's why
Okay.
we allow formative assessment, and then
Mm-hmm.
repeatedly we will ask the student, okay, you still have time to improve your scheme, and then a lot of comments will be given to us the process. Okay, this is also some of the design rubric that we will show to the students, where inadequate, adequate, accomplish, and mastery. So they will see their levels. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and then often we see the student will get improved by time, and then this is we always allow that, because design sometimes takes time to actually become more matured and become much more improved. So this is some of the assessment rubric
So,
that
so
we
they have a very proper assessment guideline through the assessment rubrics, to guide them what they need to do, right?
exactly, yes.
Okay.
Okay, aside from the assessment, the normal assessment that follow the LO and VO, we have this facilitator assessment. All right. The idea of the SOUL methodology, we don't want to produce a graduate that only have a lot of A's, but lacking in terms of all of these elements. So therefore, in this SOUL methodology, we have a separate assessment because we want to see the leadership and entrepreneurship, the participation, teamwork, professional ethics, communication, and lifelong learning. Because to be a good architect, you need to sell your work. So you need to have this leadership and entrepreneurship.
Okay,
So
so the all the soft skill is very important to be a good architect, right?
yes, exactly.
Okay.
So sometimes there are students who only good in design,
Mhm.
but they don't know how to market their design.
Okay.
So this is yeah, I think it's a shame. So because the student cannot, you know, it cannot sell their idea, it cannot share their work. So it's very important to see this criteria, okay, and then participation. We don't want architects who just follow. They need to also actively participate in the group discussion,
Mhm.
okay, on also teamwork, how they actually offer their views, not only just quiet during
Okay.
the group session, and then also professional and ethics. We want to see how they don't plagiarize their work, they keep the professional because it's very important elements when they work later on. And then communication and then lifelong learning. Okay, this is also important. Communication is very important as an architect
Uh,
because when during the construction, when you work later on, architects normally become the leader in the construction. So you need to communicate better to actually convince the construction team. So it's very important if so that we can nurture in the early stage. So this SOUL methodology, normally we issue separate certificate, okay, for the students. When the lecturers employ this methodology, we issue separate certificate. So along with their transcript, normal transcript, they will have this SOUL methodology where we'll show whether they are good in terms of leadership or they are not good in teamwork. So they will have this spider web where they have this separate assessment towards
so then they know what to improve after they got after they get
yeah,
the assessment from the facilitators, right?
exactly.
Okay.
So they can improve from time to time.
Okay.
Okay, so this is how the rubric will look like. Okay, in terms of leadership, participation, teamwork, ethics. So it's very detailed rubric. Okay, and then of course we don't penalize the student. The student will improve. Okay, from time to time, so that hopefully maybe the first time they will get only 1 mark for this leadership, maybe 2 marks for participation, 2 mark for teamwork, 2 mark. So we expect them to, okay, to move the chart. Maybe at the end of the towards the end they get maybe 4, 5, 5, 5, because the high mark is 5. So we hope that they can improve along the way. Then only we can talk about a graduates which is future proof, which
Okay.
is valuable for the industry. All right, so this is how it looks like from
So
zero.
the final marks they get is the last marks that they get is from the final improvement that they do, right?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. So so we, the a good graduates will have, okay, for example, even the studio they get only maybe B plus, but if the soft skill is very high, so this is actually the quality that the, you know, the future employer will like to
Okay.
yeah, would like to hire rather
Yeah,
than
that's right.
the straight A but, you know, having zero for all these soft skills.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, we implemented, as I mentioned, the first strategy I implemented towards a final year undergraduate, and then now I'm implement this towards a master architecture students, which is very much easier because they are already matured, and then it's very easy to give instructions towards them. And this module also, so we already train in Indonesia, India, and also Philippines. All right, we already, I would say, franchise this methodology, and I also got a copyright for this framework.
Oh, it's good. It's good.
We have also package training for this soul methodology, where for like for example, like instance, Indonesian case, we came there for 1 semester. We come before semester begins, and during semester to monitor the progress, and towards the end to see how the reflection towards from the students.
Okay.
Okay, that's all from all right. That's all for this soul module. I would like to share one more video
Mm-hmm.
regarding the progress that we have done in the studio. I would say this is the first in the world that have a very comprehensive step by step on how. Can you see the video now?
Okay. Not yet. Not yet.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
I would say this is the first in the world that have a very comprehensive step by step on how you want to run your studio.
This is slightly a little bit. It's better, right? Okay.
We have three main components, which is tutorial sharing, and second one is the input lecture, and the third one is the assessment.
Discussion, we feel more comfortable, and the environment will be less stress or more casual.
The first part is the tutorial sharing. The sharing in the studio previously is between the lecturers and the students. So the students become the one who just receive the information from the lecturers. Okay, there's no vice versa. So in this two technique, we allow the student to actually share between their peers. So how we do it is that from the sharing session, for example, the student were told to bring their own materials to the studio. Okay, for example, in a group of 5 or 6, if one student brought maybe 3 at least articles or 3 reading materials, now we already have 15 materials to be discussed in the studio. So so the discussion in the studio become dynamic, and then a lot of points to be discussed rather than just waiting for the lecturers to give the input. And the second step is using tutorial and sharing, where apart from the sharing among the student can also critics among their peers before lecturers as a facilitator, which will just wrap up the session.
When we are critiquing each other, it is kind of like a reminder to ourselves on our own progress.
And then the third element, which is the assessment. During the assessment, we allow the students to actually assess their peers. They were given the rubric, they were given the evaluation mark, and then from this rubric, they know what they've been evaluated, so they know what they will be marked. So therefore, indirectly, they will try to improve their skills.
It creates that sort of competitive environment between the students. So everyone got to do their best and design in a better way to just, show that they are the best.
We don't want a graduate that only focusing towards the marks entirely for their academic path, okay? But they need to have like a teamwork spirit, they need to have a professional and ethics, they need to have communication and lifelong learning, they need to have this leadership and entrepreneurship. Soul is no longer a module, it's going to be a methodology of teaching in creative studios.
We learn together, and then we get the knowledge from each other in a group.
Throughout Soul module, we try to complement with several alternatives. For example, we can come up with quiz, we can come up with gamification using Kahoot. We can allow for debates, we can allow for lectures given by the students, and also so many other things. With Soul, we hope that everything can be done in a systematic way and also independent, and also the student will allow themselves to become independent learner rather than the conventional way where they need to wait for the lecturers to give their instruction. Because in real world, that's how it works. We want to nurture this kind of generation in the future.
Okay, that's all. I think that's all to wrap up this the
Okay.
whole presentation.